that pertains to you just reading them. It does not have much detailed of fiqh explanation that I need to do. Like this slide, which is the virtues of Salah, Alhamdulillah. This is just self-explanatory. It knows how, Salah is very important, and that's why we come to understand all the prerequisites of it. And of course, this included some of the ahadith that Prophet Muhammad SAW shared with us to bring us the importance of Salah. And that is one of the most significant thing about it, is that it was prescribed up in the heavens. Every other worship act in our deen was just given to Prophet Muhammad SAW on earth through angel Jibreel, with the exception of Salah that Prophet Muhammad received up in the heavens directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without any connection, without even the connection of Jibreel, angel Jibreel alayhi salam himself. So inshallah ta'ala, this is what we started with, which is the purifications and the tahara. And we defined that it is to remove the physical impurities. And we talked about what are confirmed impurities according to all Muslim scholars. So this slide, if you can just go through it, it's because I just want to make sure that you are connecting along with me. So as you can read it, everything that you read here is basically agreed upon with all the scholars. There is really, it's self-explanatory. We should not have any issues with those, as we want to leave the time for the more detailed slides. So this slide is all about the agreed upon. Everything mentioned in this slide is considered to be impure, agreed upon. Now, here are something that most of us consider to be impure, but it's not something that is agreed upon. And this is how you become, as a student of knowledge, to respect and understand the other opinions. So you will be very neutral when you come to give your verdict, or when you come to actually consider to adopt which one that you want to adopt and pass it on to your household members and to your friends and to your circle in the community. So dog saliva is not something that's all agreed upon, but the majority agree that it is impure. And so that's something that's what's, common. The other one is not, as common, but it really pertains to those who are in villages and what have you, where they have their water in buckets and in tanks, and they're kind of exposed, and a beast would come and drink from it. That is something that is not agreed upon, that it would bring najasa to it. Now we're still with the impure things that are not to be agreed upon. So in this slide, you see what are impurities that are controversial among scholars, with the stronger opinion being that they are pure. So here it is disagreed upon, but it's the stronger opinion here in this slide lays for you what most of the scholars consider these items to be pure, tahir. Not necessarily halal, but it's tahir, like the alcohol. It's haram to drink, it's haram to touch, it's haram to deal with. But as a product, as a liquid, if it happens that a splash of it came on your body, is that impure? So the majority believe that it's not impure. It does not bring najasa to your skin because it touched you. And you go through that. That's just one example that we put on the top for you. And you go through that list. All of these are items that are considered to the majority of scholars not to be considered pure. It does not bring najasa to your body if for some reason or another it touched your body. So you can just take a quick glance at these items. So if you have a question about it, you can just write down your question. How to purify things. Now that we have learned the items and the things that we need to be aware of that brings impurity, that are considered to be najis, we learned what is agreed upon and what is not agreed upon. But we also learned what is not what is not agreed upon, but it's the majority of the scholars come to believe it's pure. And now we want to learn how to purify things with things that we come to understand that they are impure. Everybody agrees that they're impure. And also, even if they don't agree, like the dog's saliva, I want to be, taking every possible precaution, and I want to just purify myself. So how do we do it? So purification from impurities is performed by using water. So water is the top leading um, 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 the top leading thing that you can use in order to purify an impure object. Purification after answering the call of nature from urine. This is all this is laid down for you, is that something touched my skin, how to purify myself. Water is the leading thing. But we're going to go into a little bit of when soil gets involved. When I use the bathroom. So can I use papers and what have you? Yes, you can, but water is the top leading. But if you're outside and you cannot reach to water, then yes, paper and stones and what have you, any other rough material that is to be used is permissible. Purification of body parts and cloth. This is just all laid of what if it's part of my skin, but what if it's on my clothes actually? Because if it's on my skin, it's easy. We just learned that water is to wash it away with. What if it comes on my clothes? It does stain. It does not make stain. So we have really talked about it. What really matters is the physical action of purifying that impure thing. So a dog's saliva come on your clothes, or a urine, splashes of urine or some drops of urine came on your clothes, not on your hand, because on your hand it's easy, you can just wash it away. What if it comes on my clothes? So this is what matters, is for you to wash that area. You just wash it. And when we say wash, it means wash. It's not really just wetting that area with traces of water like we do when we wipe on the socks. No, it has to be washed, meaning that it has to be soaked, which means that from the upper, like the appearance of your cloth, it's wet. And if you were to flip your clothes, it will be wet as well. That's what it means. It means that water was able to penetrate throughout the cloth, throughout that area. And if the stain stays there, it's not a problem, because you've done what it needs to be done, and that you washed and you rubbed, and that's all you can do. If it stays and the stain is still there, that's fine. That still allows you to move on and to pray and what have you. Purification of cloth from a male infant urine. This is something that we take as a worship act. We have no idea what's the wisdom of it, but we said that it was reported that if it's a baby boy, that it gets, you can just sprinkle on it water, but if it's a baby girl, then it has to be washed. How to purify things. Purification of the now it's more of things, not more than the body itself. طيب, now the clothing, if it touched like the bottom of the dress of a woman, because women tends to have, like when they have their dresses, it kind of drags. The opposite of men, where the sunnah is to have it really a little bit shorter where the ankle is. So ankles, that would mean that the bottom of their dress or thawb or what have you does not touch the ground. However, when it comes to the sisters, it does. So it was told by Prophet Muhammad SAW, if it happens that the bottom would actually collect or touches any of the najasat and impurity or impure things, what comes after? So she just doesn't need to keep picking up the bottom of her dress and keep washing it and what have you. As she walks along the later on dry spots will, inshallah ta'ala, purify that impurity. Somebody would ask, can I still do to wash it with water? The answer is, of course, yes. But then again, if someone is walking out and it's collecting dirt, to come and wash it with water, you're just going to make your dress more muddy. So that's why, subhanAllah, it came that Allah allowed for the continuation of walking would the dryness of the later on distance would be sufficient enough to purify that najasa. Now, one special thing about this slide is the utensils. Utensils tend to have a special rulings to it. That if a najasa would come actually on your utensils, a dog's saliva, something that urine, something that came on your utensils. So that's just something that we talked about, like the dog saliva. We talked that it's a little bit different, where you have to wash it 7 times. One out of the 7 is with soil. I'll just give it to you a second to look at it, just in case you have any questions, inshallah. Now, this slide is not something that relates a lot of to us, but definitely when you bring things to your house, like the skin of animals and what have you, even as of decoration or what have you, there has to be a process where it has to be dried Islamically. But that, honestly, that process is something that we take for granted. It's been done throughout it doesn't matter whether you live in a Muslim or non-Muslim country. The process of actually processing that skin and drying it up is a process where it purifies that skin, which is the tanning process and what have you, the sun itself and whatever, the dryness, the heat that would come to make it pure. Now we want to learn, if you would look at this slide, you go through the conditions or the condition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves his slave to be in. These are what we call sunan al-fitra. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to keep within our body and to be maintained that way. So you look at it and you read and you let me know if you have any questions about it. We talked about circumcision and we talked about whether it's a must for boys. And then we talked about it that it's not a must for girls, but then there are some traditions where they do them for both genders. Is it allowed? It's allowed, but it's not really an obligation on the girls at all, depending on the culture and what have you. But by all means, this is not the controversial things that has been really said on the news, where some culture and sub communities are really abusing girls with that. And this has nothing to do with the fiqh issue, because from the fiqh issue, they're not even obligated to do so. But that unacceptable practice is something that has to do absolutely with culture. It has nothing to do with the fiqh. Some people say no, some scholars have seen it to be an obligation. Yes, some, but we're talking about, it is something that we have to come to agree that the majority don't see it at all that's of an obligation. So we cannot just, say because it is a must on girls to do circumcision. So that's maybe the most important thing in this slide. The rest of it is all known to you. No issues of it, inshallah ta'ala. Sunan al-Fitra also. We talked about the circumcision. We talked about, this is all the shaving, the clipping, all that, inshallah, more in details. Siwak, and we talked that more in details. And we learned that siwak was more of a sunnah, and Prophet ﷺ loved it. So this applies for both genders. It's a sunnah that is not being applied. So if you were to practice it, that would be great, because you are really reviving a sunnah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Now, going to the bathroom, we talked first about if the bathroom has to be used outside. And we talked about that it should be something that people should really cover up themselves with. Bathroom facilities are already secured, alhamdulillah. If it's out in the open, then they have to really get away. So someone will say, so most of the people when we're on travel, when they actually just park their cars and on the highway and then just do it in front of everyone, of course, turning their back to the people, to the highway. Is it the sunnah? The sunnah is not, this is not a sunnah. Why? Because that's not being in a secured place, and it's not really obscured at all. It's not good for people to see you. That it's not good for. So we do take the precautions that if it has to be done outside, and a person must do it outside, it has to be in a place where people don't really see you. Now, we talked about entering the bathroom with your left foot. And before you physically enter, you say, Bismillah, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubthi wal-khaba'ith. And we talked about how the bathroom facility that we have in our homes are to be separated like into three facilities. One is washing area, where you can say Bismillah, dhikr and everything. Bathing area, where you can do the exact same thing of dhikr and what have you. And then the actual toilet area. And that is an area where we don't say dhikr, we don't say Bismillah, we don't say Quran, we don't say Alhamdulillah, we don't say anything of that nature, out of respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we don't bring in His name into a place where it's considered where people discharge filthy things from their body, filthy or known to be impure, najis. So as a person walk with his left foot will say that dua, as they leave out, after they physically leave, they leave with their right foot, but after the body exits the toilet area, then they say غفرانك. These are more of do not do so. So do not urinate in a bathing place or in still water. These are things to be cautious that we don't do it as Muslims. So, things for you to read, inshallah ta'ala. It's more of do not do this, do not touch private parts with the right hand, more of etiquettes. Yani we don't have these, we should not have this part of our culture, but rather out of etiquettes, our etiquettes should avoid these things. We clean our hands all the time, which is alhamdulillah, most of us do naturally, maybe with the exception of using our right hand. Some people don't. Some people say, well, I never knew that. I actually was using my right hand to really clean my body from all this impure things when I use the bathroom. I didn't know any better. This is where you would switch your habit to actually hold to use your left hand to cleanse and to clean your private parts, inshallah. Now, finishing with like body preparation, bathroom and travel, we go into al-wudu. Al-wudu is this is like the very most important thing. So the reason why the slides are put that way, we cannot go to wudu if the body has najasa on it. So we want to make sure that the body does not have any type of najasa on it, anything impure, whether it's directly on the skin or on your clothes. and the area that you are about to do, like your wudu, you are basically cleansing everything. Now you're ready. Next step would be wudu itself. What are obligatory acts of wudu that are agreed upon by the Muslim jurists? So what you are reading on this slide is things that are must, and they're agreed upon. So take a quick look at them and see if you have any issue or confusion that all along you thought that these something that were not really um, part of wudu or anything. So that's where we need to ask and see if that's all good. Now, al-wudu to be continued. That was which everything agreed upon, all scholars. This slide has some of the disagreed upon. Not necessarily that all scholars have agreed on that. Which is the intention for the wudu? Do I really have to bring like an intention? So most of the scholars that did not make it part of the obligation or part of the obligatory acts consider that when a person actually goes to the bathroom facility, to the washing facility, that action itself is the niyyah itself. The reason why he went to the facility is to make wudu and what have you. Some say no, it's good to actually bring in the consciousness of your mind that I'm standing now to do the wudu. You don't have to verbally say it at all, like some people actually publicly and vocally announce it. You don't, but it's that consciousness. Your mind is now conscious of the fact that I'm about to make wudu, which is a worship act, and I'm doing it for the sake of Allah because He asked me to do so, getting myself ready to pray Salatul Dhuhr, for example. But without announcing any of that on your tongue. It's just in your heart and in your mind, but it's really conscious. It just came now. I'm realizing I'm about to do that. At-tasmiyah, to say Bismillah, is another thing that applies to these things. And you have here what the opinion of the majority and the opinion of the minority of what comes to be obligation and what comes to be actually considered to be just the sunnah. So believe it or not, some people thought that rinsing out mouth and nose was just something that they took it for granted, that it was an obligation. But here you learn that it is actually, the majority thinks that it's just recommended. But do we do it? Yes, we do it. Why? Because it's, alhamdulillah, very healthy. It cleanses my body, and I want to avoid the disagreement among the scholars. So I want to make sure that I do it right. But it helps now if someone is taking actually a bath as a ghusl, and they forgot to do their mouth and their nose, and they went out and they actually put on clothes and they went on and they prayed and whatever. Then they remember that, you know what, subhanallah, I never done my nose and my mouth. This is where it helps, where you don't have to go do the process all again and take another bath and do it right with your nose and mouth. This is where the fiqh comes to understand, I'm skipping it this time just because I know I can, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to skip it all the time. Al-wudu, again, disagreed upon, as you can read, inshallah. Go ahead and read it and see if you have any questions. Running one's finger through his beard, that's just to make it more sure. Wiping the ears, externally and internally. The order. So this is the last slide on the disagreed upon obligatory acts, which is the close sequence of the actions. They have to be, you cannot stop wudu in the middle and then go do something else and comes back. As long as your body parts are wet, that's the indication. So if a question comes to you, how do I know that it's really in sequence or not? And how can I know that I can continue? I just stopped, I talked to somebody. Does that invalidate So your distinction is your body part still wet. If it's still wet, it doesn't have to have water on it, but it's still soft. It means that it's soft with wetness. And about the rubbing issues, if it's a must or not. Now, al-wudu, they're recommended. So we talked about obligatory acts agreed upon, obligatory acts disagreed upon, and now we're talking about recommended sunnah acts. So that's something that all the scholars agreed upon, that they are just recommended acts. If you do them, great, you get some reward. If you don't do them, you're not in trouble at all, because they just come to add extra reward to you, that's all. Using siwak. So you can go through them really quick. I think these are all self-explanatory, inshallah. Now, we continue with the Sunnah acts. Continuation with the supplication of what to say after wudu. These are some of the dua that is said after wudu. Then also it is from the Sunnah to pray 2 rak'ah after every wudu. Now that we talked about wudu with all its aspects, now we want to talk about what invalidates wudu. Now, to make it easy, let's talk about things that all the scholars agreed upon. Okay, so all scholars agreed upon. So let's talk about it. Now you look at this slide and you see if you have any questions about it. This is all agreed upon. Okay. Now, same concept, things that would invalidate wudu, but it's not agreed upon by all scholars. Take a look at it and see if all makes sense to you with no confusion or with no issues. Now, continuation of the disagreed upon by Muslim jurists. Continuation, inshallah, of the disagreed upon by Muslim jurists. Now that we talked about how wudu is to be performed, acts of wudu, and then what nullifies wudu. Now, actions that actually require wudu. So we are very familiar with the fact of prayer, that it requires wudu, agreed upon. So these are at least the first two that are the agreed upon by Muslim jurists. However, I did make a note, and I still want you to have that note as a valid note, which is something that we will review, inshallah ta'ala, which is the second one. The second one, we have argued to come to differ with the author Imam Bainuni of putting the tawaf as part of agreed upon, where it is not something that it has a minority disagreement, but it's a very legitimate minority disagreement. So we will, inshallah ta'ala, consider this to be part of the book, But it's something for you to know, inshallah ta'ala. Now, second one is with that disagreed. So it's not really necessarily that they all agree about, which is mainly the Quran and touching the Quran. And, more of course, of that comes here. Just make sure that I didn't skip anything. Touching or carrying require apples for a Muslim jurist. Okay. So as you can see here, that touching or carrying a copy of the Quran requires ablution for main Muslim jurists. Like most of them say that it's required, but the minority says it's not required. Actions for which wudu is preferred. So it's not obligatory, but preferred. You take a look at it and see if you have any questions, inshallah. Now, about some notes concerning wudu. A lot of people ask, can I talk, can I speak while I'm making wudu? And we said yes, but it has to be something that of, legitimacy, something important that you need to say, but it's not really a normal chat that we just carry on conversations together while we are using the bathroom. That's just like the main thing, common thing that we do. So you can just take a quick look at it and see if you have any questions. Now, major ritual impurities. That's, again, what we learn. I want you to put on your notes for this slide that this is called the Janaba state. Janaba state. That's major ritual impurity. Agreed upon. Now, you take a look in this slide. This is where what are actions which cause major ritual impurity require ghusl that are agreed upon by Muslim jurists. So what you read on this slide is what they all agreed upon. If there's any ejaculation due to stimulation while sleeping or while awake, intercourse, the ending of menstruation and childbirth bleeding, death of a non-martyr Muslim, all these actions require a must of ghusl. Now, those were all agreed upon. Now, this is the disagreed upon. What are actions which require inshallah ta'ala, ghusl, but it's not all agreed upon. We talked about somebody who just wants to convert to Islam, and we talked about Friday prayers. Prohibition while in major ritual impurities. That's while somebody is in a state of janaba, cannot pray, cannot do tawaf. Of course, these are what are the prohibited acts for one instead of janaba that are disagreed upon by the Muslims. Again, that's the issue of touching or carrying a copy of the Quran. And remember about also reading and what have you, which is here in the slide, which is the recitation of the Quran. Now, we are continuing with the disagreed upon. These are many more than the agreed upon, remember, because these are more detailed. So we talked also about not only carrying the Quran, but what about staying physically in the masjid? What about not staying in the masjid, but passing through the masjid? Now, obligatory actions for ghusl, bathing. What causes a person to have a ghusl? Oh, I'm sorry, not have to have a ghusl, but what defines ghusl to be a shari'i ghusl, an Islamic ghusl? Because shower is really truly a ghusl, but it misses something that does not actually qualifies shower to be a ghusl, and that is something that we will cover, which is shower might be somebody will just go in really quick and out, and it does not really necessarily mean that all the water went into all body parts. So, but all water to touch all body parts is part of the what really defines the Islamic ghusl. Now, also there are things, but not necessarily agreed upon, which is the intention. Someone was just taking a shower without having a niyyah is not necessarily safe, because there is a good, not good, let's say majority of the scholars consider that to be actually a must, the intention. So you can't just walk in, get a shower, and get out without having an intention. I'm actually doing a worship act here. Allah told me to take ghusl before I get prepared for salah and what have you, or out of my monthly cycle, or because of a wet dream, or because of a spousal relationship of having intercourse together. All that has to bring in the niyyah and the intention that I'm doing this, all being a full submission to my Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, obligatory actions for ghusl, bathing, but it's disagreed upon of continuation. Rinsing the mouth and the nose. Remember when we talked about it, when somebody just forgets, and what for you to know that somebody forgets, how can you say, no, I don't need to go back? Because alhamdulillah, you have enough of dalil and proof from good legitimate schools that really say that nose and mouth are just part of the recommended. It's not really obligatory. Rubbing body part while water is being poured on it. So that's another thing that some people will listen to a lecture and what have you, and the sheikh will say, well, you have to rub. If you did not really rub, that means your ghusl is not complete, and you would understand is not complete means that it's invalid. No, that doesn't mean that, unless he just adopts the opinion of it's just only his opinion that the rest khalas, because he believes it's obligatory, then of course for him, yes, because that's what he adopts. But we cannot tell people who have done that for many years to go back and repeat all their prayers just because it's an opinion that I adopt that is not necessarily agreed upon. If it was agreed upon, then yes, that's a different story. Like somebody that did not pay zakah all his life. Paying zakah is absolutely agreed upon. So can that drops? The answer, no. All the scholars come to say that's something that they have to do it, whether they haven't done it for 1 year, 2 years, or for 10 years. They have to go back, estimate their zakah amount, and do it all at once, or through installments if they can't do it. What about prayer? Prayer, no. Somebody will ask, how come zakah is stand still, that it has to be rectified, but salah not? This is a very subtle thing. Salah pertains between you and Allah, between the servant and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your repentance is good enough for me if you start on a fresh start. So no need for you to repeat the missed salawat for the past 20 years. You're good, just keep going. Is this something agreed upon? No, but the majority, you're comfortable to move on because of a strong dalil from some opinions. However, zakah is not just between the servant and his Lord, which is a worship act, but it involves a third party, and that is the poor, the miskeen, the needy, the other six different categories of zakah eligible recipients. Because it involves a third party, the right does not drop just because a person repented or just came back. It has to be given back to the recipients, those who have the right of it. Recommended actions for ghusl. These, you can read them really quick. Those are all sunnah acts, inshallah. Times and events for which ghusl is preferred. Friday, of course, all these are all preferable times where you take ghusl, inshallah. These are matters related to ghusl. Can we bring two niyas together? Yes, you can, inshallah ta'ala. Matters related to ghusl also, there is no problem drying ones with a towel. Some people ask, can I dry up? Because some people say that I have to leave my body wet. And we talked about that yes, you can. But if you want to leave water of your wudu and of your ghusl to air dry, that would be great, alhamdulillah. Some people do it, some people get irritated, so no problem, depending on your body. And we said that, the water, the clean, pure water of bathing is recyclable. Some people need that water because they're very tight on water. Then we went into the tayammum concept and the tayammum worship acts, that when water is not available or out of reach or not feasible to use. This slide talks about the definition of tayammum. This is performing tayammum. And in a nutshell, we have said that tayammum is way different than wudu. It has to have the niyyah of the intention that I have to do the wudu. Then you touch the earth or the soil of earth, the nature of earth, the soil with your hands. And then because people are not used to put sand or dirt on their faces, or let's say dust more, it's not really dirt that you're going, but more of natural dust. Is that you can blow it out. So you can just put your hand on your face as you are washing, full face, and then you just rub your hands. And when you rub between your fingers, that would suffice. The other opinion that include the rubbing. And we did up to the elbow is more of recommendations to some school of thought. Reasons for permissibility of tayammum, and that is agreed upon. So in this slide, that the things that the scholars agreed upon, these are self-explanatory. You can read them really quick, like when water is not available, unable to reach it, a wound, we talked about this, and those are really fresh on your mind because we talked about them recently. Kind of rushing you a little bit so I can take your questions. Reasons for, but because this is fresh to your mind, because that's what we recently covered. Reasons for permissibility of tayammum that are disagreed upon. Like, for example, the first one, if one is able to use water but fears that the prayer will be over. These are judgment things. Salah time will be out, but it's very important for you to study it because that's something would be necessarily on your test, so you know that if it actually happens, what to give a fatwa or an answer to people. Now, what invalidates tayammum? And these are also self-explanatory, especially the first one. Now, the prayer for one who has no means of purifying himself. So this is again someone that did all it takes for water, for wudu, for tayammum, and they just can't do it. We talked about what do they need to do, and we talked about some of them saying that it gets done, but it has to be repeated. But the others said no, it gets done. It does not have to be repeated. Some says yes, it has to be repeated, and some very few actually say it just drops. The whole salah drops because purification was not uh, of reach to that person. Wiping on top of the shoes, slippers, and talk. We talked very in detail about wiping over socks, so we're not going to spend a lot of time. And those who have not, attended with us, even if I rush it really quick, even if I explain it a little bit more detail now, you're still going to be confused. So you need to actually go back to those presentations and attend them. And then if you have any questions, inshallah, you can catch up with us. Conditions of wiping on top of the water. The slides talks about the conditions that allow someone to wipe over their footwear. And also the duration. And when does it start? The duration, when does it start? Where and how to wipe on top of the footwear. We talked about how to wipe over. We said that mainly it's from the tip of the toes up to the top where the ankle is. And we said with the traces of water, with your fingers right on the right foot and left hand on the left foot. What nullifies wiping over what footwear? We said that what is agreed upon and the expiration of the duration and removing the footwear. So nullified by major ritual impurity, that's agreed upon. Expiration of the duration of wiping, removing the footwear is disagreed upon. So the first two is agreed upon that it stops and it nullifies the wiping. But the last one, there is a disagreement. If someone would actually take off his socks, would that nullifies the wudu? Or even the duration itself. Conditions of wiping agreed upon. This is what agreed upon, that of conditions that allows you to wipe. No, those are the disagreed upon conditions, but disagreed upon. Like to be free of holes, for footwear to be made of leather. Now the specifications. Now, we did say in this class and in general, in this type of culture that we live in, we adopt the opinion that any type of footwear, socks, shoes, leather socks, anything that really covers the foot with these specifications, it allows us to wipe over it. And these are the specifications in this slide. Wiping over casts. Now this was very fresh that we talked about recently. So we talked about the permissibility and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it. Ruling of wiping. How do you wipe actually over casts and wrappers and what have you? So we talked about that in details. Whether you have to do traces, of water on the wound itself, if possible. If not, then on the wrapper, and what have you. When is it obligatory to wipe? What actually invalidates wiping? So the removal of the wrapper or the cast itself is what nullifies it. And when like the wound is healed, khalas, the wrapper has to be removed. Wiping on head covering. We talked about the permissibility of wiping over the scarf for the sisters out in public and for the brothers who have like turbans or a very tight headwear that it takes them a while to put it back and what have you, and the permissibility of that and the opinions pertaining to that. And then finally, we went into all the ahkam and rulings that pertains to our sisters, the menstruation and like the monthly period that they have, and into all the opinions of the duration and when to start, when not to start, how to determine an Islamic defined period that stops her from prayer and what have you, and many of the restrictions and what brings her back to a state of purity that she is now able, that she is, alhamdulillah, that it's that the period cleared, that she can go back to normal worship activities. So that's the length, and we talked about it, and the cap, the minimum, the cap on the blood during a period or during the nafas or the post-child bleeding ahkam and rulings. These are the impermissible acts during menses and what have you. So those are the agreed upon right here. And the disagreed upon. Again, these are kind of self-explanatory and they repeat themselves from what we have mentioned before. Disagreed upon continued about the physical staying in the masjid or even passing through. The prolonged blood flow, this is, we talked about special cases of some of our sisters who have long periods, long monthly cycle, and what to do and when to consider to stop it, even if some of them have traces of blood all the time. And that was just a quick summary of the whole thing as a chart to explain all the purification process and the concepts that come with it, inshallah. And with that, inshallah, that is everything that we covered. Inshallah ta'ala, to take your questions and to get you ready, inshallah, for the test. It says, my family are not Muslim and they eat pork. Do I have to wash utensils in the same manner? Would it be better to bring plastic utensils of my own? So pork is not something that is agreed upon, but this is a very good question because it's part of what's disagreed upon. So some of the scholars did consider it to be physically, not only that we're not allowed to eat it, but it's physically impure, physically najis. So with that, having said that, no matter how clean the utensils are, they go through process of cleansing, dishwasher, all that stuff, make sure that it cleanses it, but it's missing that soil process, which is again a ibadah, it's a worship act. We have no idea why. I would say your suggestion is very good. That would be great if you can, and that would not bring an offense to them. And I think they would respect that. You don't have to really give them the details because this is something that we cannot really explain. To us as Muslims, we just submit. We have no idea why do we have to go through 1 out of the 7 to be soil. But we say, Sami'na wa ata'na, we listen and we obey. That's part of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to just test us of some things. I don't have to explain everything to you. It's not like alcohol where we can explain the danger, the the consequences of drinking and being intoxicated, where they come to fully understand. But for this to go into details, they don't understand that. They tell you, well, this is just came so fresh out of the dishwasher. It's been really soaked in boiling water, and it's the dishwasher has the detergent, and it just kills every germ and every bacteria. So I would not go into explaining why you're doing that, but rather just being sensitive about it. If you really cannot get out of it, remember that because it's disagreed upon, it does not put you in an awkward position where you must do that or you avoid eating because of that, but rather, no, you can go on with it, inshallah ta'ala. Second question is, does the separation of a bathroom into 3 areas also apply to small bathrooms where sink, shower, and toilet are next to each other? Or is it for bigger bathrooms only, such as the master bathroom? So to think of even the small, those like in houses where they say, 2.5 bath. So yes, when it's a full bath, I think it's self-explanatory. When it's a half bath of what they consider culturally, it's a half bath. When you actually enter, and it does not even have bathing area, but maybe small bathrooms in some of the apartments do have. So you go into a very small, so it will also be split into 3 areas, but very tight. The only time that I can think of that it cannot be split into 3 areas is where the toilet and the sink are put, like across from each other with maybe a couple of, I don't know, a couple of feet away from each other. So again, it's all imaginary. Where you stand to actually do your wudu is considered to be the washing area. So you can, because you have to say the niyyah and you have to say Bismillah. If then just 1 feet, away from that, as you turn your back and you turn your way, and you enter after 1 feet, you are into the toilet area. This is where you stop the adhkar. You don't say Bismillah, you don't say anything. It's tight, but alhamdulillah, that action by itself would put you in the right state, where you're not really mixing and saying Bismillah inside the toilet, the stalls area in like public places and what have you, inshallah. Purification of utensils after dog saliva. How do you cleanse with soil? So with soil, it's just you bring sand like from earth, and you actually just rub it through the utensil. So it's muddy, or if it's like pure sand that does not turn into mud, all that is fine. And then you wash it away, of course. And again, we don't have any clear evidence of why we're doing that. We're just merely submitting to the instructions of our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, where he said, if that actually happens, wash them 7 times, one with soil. But that only pertains to dog saliva, where the first question about the pork, which actually brings to my mind, actually, for the person that actually asks, I don't think there is a problem actually with your question. I got mixed up, because pork actually, khanzir is not something that you have to do with soil. Khanzir is just, pork is just disagreed upon whether it's physically pure or impure. So that has nothing to do with the utensils, which means that if a khanzir, if a pork, like if a pig comes to sniff your body or sniff your clothes, then the rules apply of, do you have to wash it or you don't have to wash it? That pertains to your skin and pertains to your clothes, but it has nothing to do with the utensils. Utensils are exclusively for dog saliva. So that I'm so glad that the person talks of the question of the saliva. So for the first question, you have no problem. You can eat from the utensils of your parents, no issues, none whatsoever, because the purity is known that they have washed it. So the disagreement among the scholars whether it's now if a pig actually inside the house and actually starts sniffing the utensils and they come to just use it, then yeah, we cannot use it because that's part of the disagreement. But if it's been washed and it's coming out of the clean utensils, you should have no problem. That's again for the first questions pertaining to the issue of eating like pork meat with that utensils. You should have no problem none whatsoever. With the third questions with the dog's saliva, we do have a concern. It has to have 1 out of the 7 of soil. So if there is a dog inside the house and he's sniffing around and he's just jumping around and goes on the dinner table and starts, sniffing everywhere, then there is a problem because you have no idea whether the dog really kind of licked the utensils or not, even if they came out of the dishwasher or not. Now, if there is no dog, if there is a dog, then you just have to be cautious and to make sure that uh, if the dog has the habit to kind of lick and sniff the utensils, then the concern would be about the dishwashing. Should I have my own set or whatever? That should be of consideration. But the soil thing is to be done once and then it can be washed off, inshallah. I have another question that says, when you talk about the different body fluids that break wudu, you do not mention, oh, that's a tough word. I can't even read it. طيب, let's just continue. This is the white fluid that females, okay, right, secret. Oh, that's, yes, that's the fluid, okay. All day, although their cycle, all through their cycle, صح. It has nothing to do with urine or sexual arousal. Yes. Some women insist that you have to keep changing your underwear and redoing wudu due to this. My understanding is quite clear that this is a normal fluid and clean and so does not affect wudu, but I wanted to know your opinion. Your understanding is absolutely correct. This fluid that naturally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created within a body of a woman that discharges all the time has nothing to do with her monthly cycle. And it has to do with the nature of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his mercy wanted that area to always be, always has that fluid in order for, alhamdulillah, it kills every possible infection, or it really makes that, alhamdulillah, when a person is married and they have that sexual intercourse together, it causes the body not to get irritated to a point that it causes, where some women, subhanallah, who are inflicted with having with not having much of that fluid, it causes them to have infections and it causes them to have major issues with their husbands, because it causes a lot of irritations and irritations to the skin and what have you. So that fluid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created is very beneficial, and it should not be really something that worries a woman, where she has to clean it all the time and she has to make wudu all the time, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant for it to keep discharging and to be there all the time, depending on different bodies, and some of them have it, not as others, and some they discharge it with way more of others. So with that, the understanding, is it pure or not pure? The answer that it is pure, no question about it, and all the scholars agree on that. The problem that you mentioned about some sisters insisting on that is because of not because of this fluid, it's because of the fact that this fluid could be a mixture of the other discretion that comes with arousal. And this is where they come to say, well, whenever you see it, you need to always clean it, change your underwear, make a fresh wudu. So they're doing it more of because you have no idea if it was a mixture or not. You just need to do it anyway. That's different when you come to learn fiqh and understanding of fiqh rulings. Where do we say that does that fluid requires a woman to have wudu and to change her underwear and to keep doing that all day long? The answer is absolutely no. Can she actually do it? The answer is yes, of course. If she feels comfortable with that, by all means, there's nothing to stop her. That's from a fiqh point of view. Now, from the other sister's point of view, that they, because of that being cautious, sometimes we get really paranoid where we just kind of mess up our life. It's that, no, it has to be done. When they say it has to be done, then this is where we have an issue. Because when you say it has to be done, you're saying it's a must. It is a ruling. And you're saying indirectly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a must. And this is would become a problem. Because if that's the fact, where is the proof? Where is the dalil for that? Now, the concern of having it being mixed with other fluid that they all look the same and they all get mixed up with that white discretion and that white fluid that actually, because of stimulation, because of arousal, because of desires, because of many reasons that they come, if they actually come, they truly get mixed up. So I would say, how do we determine? Again, we go back to the best answer that we said, a woman is her best judge. If she's going out, if she's inside her house, if she's going on with her own affairs, she knows for a fact that I did not have anything to cause me arousal. I did not see anything. I did not feel anything. I'm just minding my own business. I'm going with my daily affairs. And I know my body the best. I know that there is nothing that really would cause any other fluid to be discharged. With that, again, the rulings apply. It's a pure fluid. It does not require any other actions. If a woman wants to do it anyway, that's up to her, but it does not require her any extra effort. Now, the opposite is true. If she actually says, well, I'm not really sure because I did go through some incident during the day where there might have been some desire, arousal, something. I'm not sure. I didn't feel it very well, but yeah, I think there was something. Maybe something that happened. She's her best judge. So if that actually happens, then to be on the safe side, then it's always better to be on the safe side since she's not sure. Now, if she's sure, then it becomes a must because it's just a mixed fluid and it has to be treated and it has to be clean. Now, if she's not sure, then she's in between that, between yes and no. It's really like it's better for her to actually clean it, change her underwear, do a fresh wudu and what have you. But if she doesn't do it because she's not really sure, then she's still within the boundaries of allowance since it's not really something that she knows for sure. I just want to make sure that I got all your questions covered. Is it possible to keep the last slide up because it seems when you are sharing the screen, the connection is improved? Okay. Maybe that's a little bit late now because I kind of stopped the slides long time ago. But I will, inshallah ta'ala, keep that in mind. So what I'll do from now on is to keep the last slide up for you, so the connection would be better. If that's what the students felt would do better, inshallah. I will have this in mind, inshallah. Do I have any other questions? What format is the test on Monday? I have not decided, but maybe most likely it would be something that does not require writing. So I'm kind of treating you well, not to make it difficult on you. Because if I make you write, then it is difficult on you and it's difficult on me because it's going to require a lot of time to correct the tests and what have you. So I would think maybe it will be mainly uh, uh, true and false and maybe multiple choice. But if it's multiple choice, it might be just two choices like A and B. Because having A, B, C, and D would require a lot of time to make tests. But I'm not really sure. It might have a mixture of all, like true and false, multiple choice, and some with writing, but it would not require major writing. It would not require lengthy writing. I'm not really sure, but inshallah, it's within those three, inshallah. So it's multiple choice, true and false. If it does require you to write something, it would be something that would be short, inshallah. It's not something that would require you like to write half a page. It would be something more of, I would say, more of bullet points. You would write more of bullet points like, conditions, or let's say, for example, I would say specifications of the texture of uh, the material, the footwear that you would wipe on it. So here you would just put bullet points like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would do, inshallah ta'ala. Will the test be at 2? So that's what I was thinking, unless you would like to have it at different time. So if you would like to have it at different time, I would like to ask you to get with, inshallah, the admin, Kashif or Radwa, and send them your preference. And we will collect all your preferences. So your preference would be either same time, so Monday at 2 o'clock, and it would requires you at least 1 hour as well. So you want to free that time. And the other preference would be some other time. So I would say uh, if the other time would be, so if we're not doing it in the afternoon, it has to be at night, before iftar, of course. So you just need to put a timing. You don't put like a specific day because we're just gonna have everybody varies. So you say like not 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but like let's say 6:30 in the evening. But you have to be flexible with 6:30 with like any day that we choose, and it could be still Monday at night. Um, Will it be provided by email? No, we're actually thinking to do it through same Google Class, inshallah ta'ala. So we're just using and sharing together, same thing. We will be presenting this and sharing the test with you. And you will be, inshallah ta'ala, answering through an app that is something that you would, inshallah ta'ala, maybe have with your phone or with your computer, with your laptop. So it will not be like through your emails, but it will be through an app, inshallah ta'ala, that you will be sent either to download or use the link. We have not finalized it exactly, but inshallah ta'ala, it will be something that will be with your smartphone. So make sure that your phone is with you. Of course, we are going to send you all the instructions ahead of time, maybe on Saturday, like late Saturday, you would have all the instructions to get ready, to know exactly the format of the test, how you're going to receive it, how you're going to answer it, and how you're going to submit it, inshallah. وإياكم إن شاء الله. بارك الله فيكم all. إن شاء الله. جزاكم الله خير, you too all, for your patience and for being with us today. Inshallah ta'ala, I would ask, inshallah, the best of success for you on your test. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out separately, inshallah, to clarify things for you. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So don't hesitate. Jazakumullah khair, barakallah fikum, for tuning in. And inshallah, we will see you back on Monday. Don't get too nervous, inshallah ta'ala. Just get ready. And I know it's a lot of information, but inshallah, you will do it bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. I will give you a lot of questions. So to make the points on the questions, not like 10 points on one question that if you lose it, you end up going from one grade to another. I always used to hate this type of style. And I was not really, it didn't set well with me when instructors like wanted to get back at their students of having a question with 20 points. So you lose that question, you go from A to C immediately. So I felt that this was very unfair. At least that was my intake on it. So I always loved a fair style where the teacher would also put some time to put questions, not just to take shortcuts by having 4 questions and each question is worth 25 points. Someone loses 1 question, they are doomed. I just didn't like that. So I will promise you, I will put the time to give you many questions. To make the points would be just maybe 2 points per question. So if you really have to lose like 10 questions to kind of mess up on 10 questions to go from one grade to another. And I might, and this most likely would happen, throw another 5 questions extra for extra points. I always loved the concept of extra points, giving chance for someone that missed out, because the whole concept of me is that I want to make sure that you understand the concept. Is not really to put you at the stage where I just want to prove that I can come up with difficult questions that I can guarantee none will answer, like some instructors do. I guess those instructors have some psychological issues and some issues in their life. So alhamdulillah, I don't have that. So I'm here to help you and to be with you and to actually be flattered to push you up to have full grade, inshallah. That's my intent, not the opposite. So you'll do great, inshallah. Don't worry, inshallah. Just all I need from you is just to put time. All it is just materials. You're just reviewing the slides. You don't even have to read the book. The slides are enough. The presentations, if you attended, the explanations are quite enough for you to be able to make well. But if you need to read the book just for more comprehension and detail, by all means, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. Barakallah fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.